Hello and welcome to the Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle. Today is our recap episode of Week 2 in the 2022-23 season, and here are today's topics. Chelsea and Spurs draw 2-2 in a thrilling second half, with Tuchel and Conte both receiving straight reds at the end of the match to fuel the fire of the London derby. Manchester United's nightmare start of season sinks to a new low for Erik Ten Hag's men. Man City continue their hot start, putting 4 past Bournemouth. Arsenal ease past Leicester behind 2 great Gabriel Jesus goals. And after 23 years away from the Prem, Nottingham Forest give their fans elation in their opener. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode.
And that's right, Musty, and because the Premier League is back, so is your chance to win $50,000. Play Premier League Pick'em for free, and you can become the next big winner. Download the NBC Sports Predictor app today, available in the App Store or Google Play Store. Wow, what a weekend we've had, my friend. Could have done with you in the studio today, all hands on deck. I mean, so much to talk about over the course of the weekend. We're going to start with the London derby from Stamford Bridge. I think Rebecca called it the second battle of the bridge after the Pochettino and Chelsea won back in the day when Spurs were going for the title. A London derby, mate, that had absolutely everything in there. Incident, contention, goals, fouls, managers going at each other. Tell me where you want to start. Give me your overview of the game first, from a footballing point of view, Rob. Okay. Do Spurs come away with a little bit of credit coming back and getting the goals in the manner that they did?
We'll get to the goals and the manner and that stuff in a minute, Rob. But yeah, they come away with some credit. There's a fight about them now. There's a strength about them. It wasn't... Chelsea came out hot. They came out hot, and Spurs really struggled to kind of get to grips with the game until the second half. The changes that were made helped them. But the biggest, I guess my overriding thoughts are, what a game, Rob. Just loved it. Just loved watching it. Sat on my couch watching you guys in the studio. But the game, I mean, had everything. The intensity, the speed, the quality, the fierceness. Love the managers going at it. Love that. I mean, like... There's nothing. I mean, there's a line. Of course, they didn't cross that line. They got yellow card. They got a red card at the end, Rob, for them getting a little bit too much in the faces. You know, Tuchel wants the handshake and the manager Conte to look him in the eye. And to be fair, we see that. I would say 80% of the time, the eye contact doesn't happen. I watched Moyes in the earlier game, the West Ham game. He didn't look into the other manager's eye.
Steve Cooper,
Tuchel was a little, Steve Cooper, and so. But who cares? Like the interview afterwards, Rob, with Tuchel saying, it's emotional. I'm like, don't need to ask any more questions, interviewer, because that's kind of that's 2 managers that care. That's 2 clubs that care about this fixture. It's 2 clubs going in a good direction, I feel. Chelsea have had a bit of a kind of a shaky, I guess, pre-season with some of the signings and some of the players leaving and all the rest of it. But the football was pure Premier League, and I think Rebecca said it, or I think Peter Drury said it actually. That's why we love it. And I'm sat there thinking, I wish I was in the studio, Rob. I was chomping at the bit to get in there and say stuff. And jump into that, my emotions. We're getting to the goals, Rob, and stuff. It's just some of the refereeing stuff that happened. Now, this was around some key incidents and the goals, etc., which may have made a difference. The biggest ones, I think, that everybody's talking about online, Rob, because I'm kind of looking at social media. Yeah. You know, whilst the game's going on, something in the studio it's a little harder for you guys to do. There's so much going on in there, and there was a lot of anger towards the Kai Havertz, the foul on Kai Havertz. Yeah. And then the Cucurella, the hair pull by Christian Romero, and just on the foul. Right now, we know that it's too far back for VAR to go back and say that's a foul. That goal shouldn't have stood. That's the first thing to clear up. It's so far back. Exactly. There's a lot of play that happened and everything. So that's not gonna. It's not gonna stop the goal. No. What would have stopped the goal if the referee have made the correct call and give the foul? Yeah. That's what. So it was a mistake by the referee, a mistake that couldn't be remedied through VAR, and a reason why Thomas Tuchel and the Chelsea team, Rob, felt hard done by, because it was a foul. It was a mistake. And Spurs might argue, well, you know what, there's mistakes the referees do all around. It's just that the goal come from the back of that, so I understand that. Now, I'll let you jump in there, Rob, to see if you felt anything differently to that. I thought it was a foul. Some people thought there was a little bit of ball in it. Yeah. I thought it was just a missed foul by the referee.
Yeah, I thought it was a foul, but I think because, as you say, VAR can't go back, the game had moved so far on. And actually, Jorginho, in his box, I don't know what he's trying to do, flicking the ball and juggling and losing possession.
Yeah.
I didn't have that much of a problem with that one, Rob, to be honest. I thought Chelsea was more of their own doing. That yes, it was a foul, but after that, they had chances to get the ball away.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hair pull one, the hair pulling one is interesting. Very interesting, my friend, because... So we have our stats guys, and we look at the rules and regulations and to see what the consequences might be. Now, we were told that, excessive force or an act of brutality against an opponent, whether the ball's in play or not, could deem it a caution, a red card caution. Now, I personally didn't feel it was an excessive force or brutality, yet I still felt it was a foul, if it's possible. So it can still be a foul, Rob. I think it's a foul play on Romero.
As long as the ball is in play.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the ball was in play when the
pull came.
When the happened.
Yeah, hair pull came. Because that way, then it's a foul. It's a kick to Chelsea. I thought Romero was very lucky to get away with that. I thought he was very, very lucky to get away with that. I think there's foul play in the middle of before that goal comes.
Is there? Right. Yeah. Now, okay, so there's a couple of things, isn't there? So this is a corner that led to the header where it's tipped over the bar. The next corner leads to the goal.
Comes in. Ben Davies has the first one.
Two parts. Yeah, two parts. I couldn't see, and we've jumped on this podcast afterwards. I haven't had a chance to go back and look whether the ball was in play.
Yeah, that's the bit I'm not sure.
If the ball is in play, that's a foul, right?
That's what I thought.
So that ends that play, and there's a free kick, and then the second corner doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So and again, we didn't have time in our goal zone, Rob, really, did we, to go back and check that?
And look, no.
So that's one thing. The second thing is, for me, it was an act of brutality, Rob. It was a straight card. I think that was even given as an example, by the way, Rob. Like a few years ago when we sit down with the Premier League referees at PGA Royale, I think that was given as an example. If you pull on somebody's hair in any way violent manner, that's an act of brutality, like a slap on the face, like somebody trying to pull your eye a little bit. I mean, for that not to... I was astonished that wasn't thought as... Because obviously there's serious foul play, which is for a straight red card and 3-match ban, which is different. This is off the ball, which is called violent conduct, and it's got to be an act of brutality. That's kind of the language around it, Rob. And the way that he forced him down, pulling his long hair like that, I thought that was a pretty big act of brutality. So, in my opinion, now again, it should have been a red card. Now, if it was, and why I said in a tweet, Rob, it could have affected the goal because. If the ball hadn't been played, it's still a straight red, off you go, and then the corner comes in, and things might have been different. But they have a man less. They have a man less. So the marking could have been different. So I think that's I understand the frustration of the Chelsea fans. I understand that Thomas Tuchel says that, Rob. And the third thing that was of interest, and I'd like to try and clear up, was the Spurs.
Højbjerg
was
goal.
It the first goal?
Højbjerg,
Højbjerg goal.
Richarlison.
Right. So again, I looked a couple of times at this in our replays and stuff, and I thought this goal was okay.
Yeah.
No question, Richarlison is in offside position.
Correct.
All right. Is he in the direct line vision when that ball is struck? And when I looked at it from the angles, Rob, it's close.
Yeah.
And he's in his sight, but he's not distracted.
Directly,
I didn't feel when that ball was struck. Right. So that's why I think
we've had one of these before,
would have looked
Rob.
at this.
I think we've had one of these before because Tim Howard was pretty quick and pretty strong on this, obviously from a goalkeeper's point of view. And he said similar thing. I think this one's okay. I think there's enough distance between him and the side of the goalkeeper.
Right.
It just gives the benefit of the doubt to Højbjerg and Spurs, and that the goal should have stood. So, as you say, lots of contestants. I think some of what we're talking about, Rob, is the referee today. I thought at times...
Not a big fan.
No.
Not a big fan.
Allowed too much to go, and it ended up spoiling the game and causing one or two of these issues that we're talking about now. You know, call fouls when the fouls stop the game when it needs to be stopped, and then the players kind of know where they are. Because we all know as players, Rob, you push everything as far as you can. If you sense you've got a referee who's not going to give much, then you do a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. I'll tell you what, Rob, just going back to the start of the game and the way that Chelsea approached the game, I thought they did a great job of preparing. You know, Tuchel said before the game, he knew where the threat is. It's where their counter-attack. I thought they were super tight. They played the game in Spurs half in the first half. When they give the ball away, they win the ball back again. Correct. The centre-backs, Rob, came all the way through. Reece James playing as a right-side centre-back was a smart move from the manager. We've seen that before from him. Came in on Heung-min Son so many times. Koulibaly's volley was a wow moment. I mean, what a volley that was! I thought, you know, the front three players of Chelsea were lively. You had Sterling pretty much up front, Rob, with Havertz, and then you had Mount and N'Golo Kante almost playing as number 8s. You saw Kante getting forward, leaving Jorginho behind there. So I thought the setup of Chelsea tactically was really strong. I thought the energy. I mean, there's new ownership, there's new players, there's a new buzz about the club. I thought that was great. The atmosphere was really, really good. And Spurs were forced onto the back foot, Rob. So, you know, I just wanted to, you know, and Loftus-Cheek, by the way, sneaky good at right wing back. I mean, and I understand it. He doesn't want to play Azpilicueta there, which he's done before, because Loftus-Cheek at home, Rob, gives him a little bit more going forward. And Reece James played, you know, of course, further back. But so I liked the way that Chelsea set up and approached the game.
And I think it would. Certainly for me, Rob, I can't talk for you, but in terms of how I thought the game might progress and what we saw last week, the times that Spurs got on the ball a little bit last week and were a little bit more progressive, and I thought they might want to enjoy a little bit more possession today, but they got forced back.
But they couldn't do it.
They got forced back by Chelsea's good play. And Chelsea were excellent in their first half. The only disappointment, I think, for Chelsea was it was only one goal at half-time. And again, you talk about how well Havertz, Sterling and Mount maybe did as a front attacking players, but they still have quite not the goal threat, Rob, that's needed in there. I mean, Havertz has a great chance late on when Reece James puts in a beautiful ball and he puts it down the side. And, you know, Mount had a couple of times when he dipped inside and was trying to bend one and put it over the top. And it's just that cutting edge, Rob, isn't it, with Chelsea, that still keeps them a little bit short of where they want to be.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, that's what they're lacking, and I think Aubameyang would be a good. I mean, it's kind of a temporary measure, I guess, with the age that he's at. But I like the idea of that, and some of the other players as well. I mean, Frankie De Jong, if they can bring him into midfield, Chelsea then look a stronger unit. So I know their pre-season was wasn't ideal, but I was impressed with Chelsea. I mean, if they play with that energy, that's really, really good. Jumping back to Spurs, Rob. I thought Richarlison and the coach did a good job. So he doesn't often change away from his three at the back, but he did change away, Rob. Absolutely. When Richarlison came on, brought off Sessegnon. I mean, it's basically 4-2-4.
Yeah, 4-2-4.
All those from 4-2-4 front players on there.
He's brave, wasn't he?
So I thought that would.
Do you know a line as well, Rob, that's coming up that I've picked up on one or two places in social media, and it's made me think, and I'm not sure if people are always looking a bit deeper, but there's a few suggestions that Conte felt the game was going away from him and he needed to spice it up. So some of the touchline stuff was to get his team going. 60 minutes on the clock, and his team kind of responded a little bit and got a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more fiery. And interesting thought of this. It's the kind of thing he might do. I'm not necessarily saying he did. I'm not necessarily saying it was pre-planned. But it might be one of those where he thinks, we're a bit passive today. Let's fire things up a little bit. I don't know. It's just out there. A couple of people are suggesting that, as well as a substitute, he changed the atmosphere in the game by what was going on the touchlines.
Maybe, and to be fair to Thomas Tuchel, I loved it. I couldn't get enough of the squaring up and the running past each other and the getting each other's faces and stuff. I mean, these are two managers, Rob, that are right up there with some of the most passionate fired up on the sideline. I think there's quite a few now in the Premier League, which I don't mind it.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's changed over the years. I think this is more of this now than we've ever had before, actually. So I love that. I love the fact that Tuchel is a brave man. I know he's a taller man. He's a brave man to get in the face of Antonio Conte, because Conte's a scary dude. He's a scary dude.
On.
So for him to
I'm
confront
talking
him...
to Bex, Mustoe. Pay-per-view fight, Tuchel v Conte. I'm having $10 on Thomas, by the way. Big, lean.
Don't be so stupid.
Big, lean, crafty.
Don't be so stupid.
Got a few moves, and I'm telling you, I know the pit bull's coming, but we're going to move around him.
Oh, you ain't taking Conte. He's going to be dead down, flipping low. He's going to get the body shots in there. He's going to get the uppercuts. No, I mean, the referees had to get involved. Was it the fourth official, Rob, that got in between them initially?
Yeah, in between the two. It was brilliant, wasn't it? Brilliant stuff. And then the handshake thing after. Did you see the handshake that Tuchel said he weren't looking in my eyes? Yeah. I mean, please look in my eyes, darling. And then that all kicked off again, and I think that's when they got the reds. Yeah. But what a brilliant...
Yeah, they got reds. I don't think...
So, will that mean they can't be on the touchline on the next game? Is that one game ban, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. One game ban. Yeah, I think red cards. I think they got to step in the stand. I think they can go into the dressing room and all that and do the usual thing, but I think they can't go down into the dugout.
That's all being interesting. But what a brilliant advert for Premier League football. What a brilliant advert for these two football clubs, Rob. And do you know what? I got the sense today. My overriding feeling is there ain't going to be too much between these two. By the way, come the end of the season. There isn't going to be. I mean, depending what Chelsea do in the window, and obviously Spurs are pretty stacked now with what they've got. This could be a really interesting fight, I think, outside of the top two for third spot.
Yeah, I totally, Rob. I mean, you've got to throw Arsenal. We'll get to Arsenal, but Arsenal will be in that conversation as well. Just one last question, Rob, I was going to throw at you.
Okay.
I think we're going to probably see it, but is it getting to be the time when Antonio Conte is going to start introducing some of his new players?
Yeah, I wondered about that.
Ivan Perisic, left wing back. I mean, they're coming in. Richarlison came in and was fired up and was charging around a little bit. He has got some options now, Rob, in different spots. Yves Bissouma in the middle of the park. Could he yet to be more effective than a Bentancur? Possibly. Or I just wonder if now, I get it, the first couple of games, the manager, we might see a couple of changes to the first 11, Rob, to see some of these new guys from the start. What do you think?
It's a good point, and I like it, because I think it's one of those where you've got the shirt, I trust you, but there's quality waiting on the sidelines now, and if you're not doing the business, then we'll start to integrate some of the money we've paid. And as you say, Richarlison gave him energy, gave him legs, gave him a little sport when he came on. Perisic is quality. Yves Bissouma, I think, is going to be an excellent player for Spurs in the middle of the park. And that's what they can do now. That's what City used to do, Rob, rotate those midfield players and wide players, and Liverpool have done. And Chelsea and Spurs in the past have not had the depth of quality. They both now are pretty good around those areas. I mean, Chelsea need to obviously look at things up front. But yeah, it's a good thought, and I think we will start to see some of those players now. Antonio Conte went strong in the summer to make the squad bigger, to make sure that he could rotate, to make sure there is competition. I think we're going to see that.
All right, my friend. We're going to jump on to the next game, which on our list is... nothing to talk about here, is it?
A
lot of these games.
Nothing to talk about here. Brentford 4, Manchester United 0. I mean, pretty routine if you're Brentford. I mean...
Yeah.
The exhalation tells me everything. I mean, a lot of it, Rob, starts becoming old ground we've gone over. A lot of it starts becoming, same old thoughts, same old Manchester United, different manager, but different thing. Yeah. Let me chuck one out there straight away to open...
Rob, why don't we... Listen, obviously that's the biggest bit, right? Yeah. Why don't we start with Brentford? Can we start with Brentford and give them some credit and give them a bit of love? And then we'll get into the Man United stuff. And I'll keep on there, Rob, as I'm talking now. Yeah. But I just... this little football club and what they're doing is pretty astonishing. I mean, that's got to be I think Rebecca said it in the broadcast, biggest, probably their best result of ever in their history. Yeah. And I thought, in terms of star players, and we've got to give out our underappreciated, and God, there's so many underappreciated players in this game and in other games, by the way. But the midfield, I thought of Brentford, and there's a player in there, Josh Da Silva. We saw him score a wonderful goal on the opening weekend from that midfield position. But him, Matthias Jensen, and Norgard in that midfield three. Of course, Eriksson is not there anymore. He's gone to the other side in this game, Manchester United. I thought those three were particularly brilliant. I thought Man United played into their hands. They were ready and waiting for them. Yeah. I thought they took their foot off the gas in the second half, Rob, being 4-0 up, and just to let Man United try and huff and puff a little bit more. And also, I want to, again, I know we've probably said a lot of the same things, Rob, before, but the way that Brentford is ran in their little niche in football, in world football, and their revenues and their where they sit, they're about as good as it can possibly be for a club of that size. I note the new players, Keane Lewis Potter from Hull City, Rob. The videos I've looked of him looks very, very good. And now Damsgaard, the midfield player, I think he's only 22, the Danish that was great in the Euros. Another very smart signing that I think you're going to see a lot of. Damsgaard's a little bit in the mould of Eriksson, clever, skillful, through balls. So, we'll jump onto Man United in a second. But, Ben Mee, the midfield, Mbomo, Ivan Toney, they've got enough now with some smart additions I've just pointed out to be fine. The second season syndrome is something that's real and would be of concern. I just don't know whether it is, Rob. The energy's there with the fans. They're going to be good at home. They got front players that can score goals. They got a smart coach, good recruitment. Brilliant story.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate the Thomas Frank, because I heard a couple of interviews after the game, Rob, and he's understanding, his preparation, his attention to detail. He talked about watching the tape last week against Man United Brighton. So at times we can go long and we can put Ivan Toney onto Martinez and we're going to win the first ball. So he's done his homework, the team were ready. He talked about the press, Rob, of how when De Gea plays out, one of those midfield players is going to jump on to the holding midfield player for United, as he did with Eriksson. They're going to win the ball back. He talked about lots of things in terms of tactically from set pieces. If we can get Ivan Toney isolated with a smaller person, we're going to win set pieces. All the things that came out, Rob, he'd talked to his team before and he'd worked at. It's a smart coach. It's a brilliantly well football club. And in 2 weeks, Manchester United played Brighton and Brentford, two of the smaller clubs in things. Two very smart coaches who've got average players, Rob, who are playing at level, well organised, well drilled, well prepared. And both those football clubs are better run, I'm talking the business of the football clubs, are better run than the great Manchester United.
Absolutely right. And, I think the players, Rob, are maybe a little bit better than average. I know the point you're making and the budgets they're coming from, but I think it goes back to good recruitment. Good recruitment for that size of club to bring in players that can mix it at the Premier League level. So you make a very good point. Man United, my goodness, and we'll get on to them now, Rob. And in terms of a club, the way it's run, we're continuing to see disturbing images, performances, face of a manager that looks absolutely shell-shocked. Erik Ten Hag when the goals are going in. Now, to be fair, you can't do much about David De Gea's mistake. That's a pretty bad mistake from a brilliant goalkeeper that's been in good form, last season. Got back to somewhere near his best. That's just a nightmare. And fair play to him, by the way, Rob, for De Gea coming on afterwards and saying, I want to speak to you guys. It's my fault. The second goal, so that's just like, wow, that's a big mistake. The second goal is a joint of the players and the coach. The coach wants them to play out. They sit, the two centre-backs split, the midfield player. It was a wrong time to do it, and it was too tight. But sometimes we know what it's like, Rob, when you've drilled something in pre-season, you bring it into the start of the season, and you kind of go with it.
Clunky,
Again, it was a mistake. He shouldn't have done it. It was a clunky. De Gea and Eriksson tried his best to sweep the ball out, but it was closed down. Really good pressing from them. I thought the third goal, Rob, Ben Mee at the back post. Lisandro Martinez
muscles him, doesn't he? In the end.
We don't want to judge. We don't want to judge a centre back when he's 5'9", but that is what makes him different. And we'll have to point out when that's an advantage and a disadvantage. An advantage sometimes because he's low centre of gravity. He's good kind of anticipating stuff. He's very good on the ball, but he got out muscled at the back post for that goal. And then the fourth goal. beautiful goal from Brentford and going back to front. The first ball in and Bournemouth finishes it off really well, and we're all like, wow, what is going on? And that's when we get the images of the manager, Rob Ten Hag. Now, I don't know, I'll let you jump back in, mate. I mean, we go in circles with this club. First of all, you tell me about the manager here, Erik Ten Hag, like in terms of what he needs to do. Is there going to be silly early pressure on his position? Has he had enough time to do anything with the team, Rob? You know, how much of this, I don't expect you to say a ton, how much of this was on him?
Difficult to put on him. Listen, when you sit in the manager's seat in your Manchester United, then it's going to come on you. He's been working with the team probably 6 weeks in total for most of the players. I'd like to see a little more and a little better, being as you've had a week on the training ground, and I wanted to see some improvement from last week from Brighton. Looking shell-shocked on the side of the pitch, not really saying anything, looking a little bit vacant. It's not a particularly good look for Manchester United playing that manager. Now, he might have all kind of thoughts going on in his head. I'm just talking as I see it, Rob. And where I am with this situation now, and this is just one to throw at you, in terms of where I feel, and it was something sort of Bex, we were talking with Bex. I think it's time, if Ten Hag is the guy, and he's shown he can be one of the top coaches in Europe, if they believe he's the guy, and let's say, for argument's sake, we're going that he is, he needs to go to the ownership of the football club and the people who he's worked with and take all the pressure off and talk about a 3-year plan. Stop talking about Champions League and where they're going to finish this year and do they get in Europe and what progression. Take all that away, Rob, and start to work on the 3 to 5 year plan. Because that's what this is where this football club are. If not, we might have a couple of decent results. They put 4 wins together. We say, oh, United are back, and it's going to come back again. We're not at the stage where Manchester United are playing the level of football that Chelsea are playing, that Spurs are playing, and certainly the top 2, Liverpool and Man City. It's time to take the pressure off. It's time to rebuild this thing from the bottom up, and it's time to start again. It's a bit where Liverpool were, Rob. Liverpool had 30 years without title. Manchester United 10 years now. It's time for a rebuild, a proper rebuild.
It is, and I agree with that. I really agree with that. Expectations, Rob, is since Sir Alex Ferguson finished in 2013, I think it was. You know, the expectations being huge. Now, trying to implement what you're saying there will be difficult. Like, wow, like we've got to be okay with some young kids coming in and losing more games and floating around mid-table. That would be a hard sell. Back to comparing with others, and I think that's where it's interesting, Rob. And I think that's where we can try and move this forward a little bit. You know, you ain't got to look. I mean, you can look at the start of Sir Alex Ferguson's time, Rob, at Manchester United. I think he was a long time before success came, and it happened, and it was helped along with a brilliant crop of young players through the academy. Now, I don't know how possible that is again. That was pretty freaky and pretty unique. That all that class of '92 came through together and was the foundation of a ton of success. That's hard to replicate, even though was the great man, Sir Alex Ferguson. So having to try and recreate that, really, really difficult. But maybe a bit more realistic, Rob, is looking at other clubs. Let's look at 3 other clubs and different degrees of similarity. Liverpool. I mean, massive club, hard times. They pipe the right guy. There's signs of progression. They rebuild. They re-sign. They get it was Comoli initially. Then it was Michael Edwards, the director of football. Great people in the top spots, good owners that want to win, and the rebuild starts. And you see it, and you watch them. You're like, well, yeah, they're losing finals, but they're going in the right direction. That's the way to do it. Good ownership, hiring the right people. Arsenal Football Club, Robbie Earle. And again, I don't know how close it will be, but they've had a massive reboot and a rebuild with aging players that are on big wages, don't really care about what's going on. Over the course of like 2 or 3 years, Rob, they've got rid of those guys and they've rebuilt with clever Edu, Mikel, the 2 most important, said this a million times on this podcast, the 2 important hirings, and they're on their way back and looking pretty good. And Tottenham, again, varying degrees of how close it is to Manchester United, but they've kind of, they've rebooted a few times that hasn't really worked. But again, you've got a coach in Antonio Conte, and you've got Paratici, the director of football, work together, experienced people, top operators in their positions, and you see what's going on right now. I'm fed up, and I'll let you get in a minute, Rob. It's the last big point I want to make. I'm running out, and I'm fed up of hearing people to blame. Right? Yeah. From when Sir Alex Ferguson left, I'll just run through a few that everybody. It's always been like, and listen, I'm sure that we've been guilty as well, Rob, of like, well, he's not good enough, and it's his fault, and this is Man United. Moyes, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ralph Rangnick, Ed Woodward, Paul Pogba, McFred in the middle of the park. Harry Maguire. I go on. John Murtough, the new director of football. Ronaldo. I mean, there's so many different avenues that people, well, that's the problem, and that's a problem. It goes to, and I've got it in my notes here as capital letters, it's the recruiter. It's the top recruiter. The recruiter at the very, very top. The owner of the club. And people can say they've spent a ton of money. Who cares? It doesn't matter if you don't hire the right people in those positions. And that comes down, and that's why you're seeing the protests, because when you get the little uptick and the little improvements, they know, the Man United fans know more than anybody else, Rob, that the owners could be doing more, could be showing they want to win, could be trying to influence things better, could be hiring the right coaches and by the way, some of them have been the right coaches, but the recruitment side, the director of football, and that's why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did well with a bunch, but it was a start of the squad not being great to continue long term. It went south with him and now the previous manager. So I'm fed up. I'm getting fed up of going around. The owners are the ultimate recruiters. They're the ones that pick the director of football, and they pick everybody else.
But listen, very well put argument, and lots of good examples. For some reason, Rob, and it's because it's the biggest club in England, arguably one of the biggest domestic clubs, clubs in world football. Manchester United is different, and people can't seem to accept. All the other clubs you've mentioned, all the clubs have gone through some really difficult times, and then started to have decisions that give some building blocks to have success. Manchester United don't. Manchester United is like, as you say, a bit scattergun approach. Whether it's managers, whether it's recruitment, whether it's style of play, there's no understanding, there's no profile of Manchester United anymore. We don't know what they are, Rob. We haven't got a clue. No. Klopp came in and built a profile of what Liverpool are like. Now it's almost easier for him to go and find players because they've got to fit a certain style. Manchester United haven't got a style, so what they have a bit of this, a bit of that. A Martinez who is
lost.
It's all over the place, and that's why I just think almost clear the decks for a moment for Manchester United. Take this moment to start again and take the pressure off and go for the rebuild and have the tough times and go through some times when it might be kids making mistakes, but come out the other side. Look at the Arsenal.
I know. Rob, and listen, we'll move on in a second.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I think with these other clubs, right, I think, I or you could suggest kind of strategies that they should do, like get this and do. I tell you what, if you're the manager or you're any higher up director of that club, like it is in such a bad mess right now. It's really hard to find a way to be positive.
Go and find. Where's the fellow Michael Edwards, Rob? Where's the fellow Michael Edwards that Liverpool lost? Where is he? Go and pay him.
Well, he's floating around. He's looking to find a job.
Go and pay him whatever he wants. Go and let him put some structure in, and go and let him start recruiting your players. Right now, right there, you've got a start. Yeah. You've got a decent start.
Right.
Proven guy.
All right. So who makes that decision? Who makes that decision?
I would think it's Richard Arnold. It's got to be Arnold, hasn't it? I would have thought Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold.
That's your job then. Go and find the best guy. Yeah. If Edwin van der Sar is around, he's at Ajax and whatever, and Ten Hag's works with him, go and pay him what is required. Go and spend the money like you would on a strike, and go and bring him in, Rob. Go and bring him in. that's the kind of thing they've got to do.
100%.
Listen, let's move it on.
John,
yeah, on, okay. Finish off.
All right, move it on.
Let's move it on.
I know there's a bit of a delay here, but the last point is John Murtagh, who is that really important director of football role, is inexperienced in this position.
Yeah,
and I get, people have got to have a chance. Michael Edwards was young, inexperienced when he took over the position at Liverpool. It worked out great. I understand Man United might have the same philosophy. You know what? He's our Michael Edwards. He's a guy who knows the club. He's been around a little bit. It's his time. But given the evidence, it's okay for Richard Arnold to say, you know what, right, enough's enough now. We need to bring in some best in class. This needs experience in this
now,
position
Rob.
Particularly.
This needs experience. Right. It needs people with know-how.
Right, 1,000,000%.
And that's what he's going to do. Listen, over the other side of City, of Manchester, things not going too bad. 4-0 against the Bournemouth team was pretty predictable in the way it went. It took just under 20 minutes to get the first goal, Gundogan, then things opened up. A day when Earle and Haaland wasn't needed that much, Robbie. He only had 8 touches during the game, one of them an assist to Gundogan. Ooh. Very different kind of performance than we saw last week from him, and it'll be like last week he was going to score, break the goal-scoring record for the Premier League. This week it'll be like, is he going to get double figures? But listen, City are flying again. They're purring. They're still in first gear. You feel there's more to come. And in the end, we're just too much for Bournemouth, mate. I thought Scott, he tried to put his team up, tried to block off early on, but at the moment the first goal goes in, it opens things up, and then City can do their thing.
Yeah, I just saw highlights on this one, Rob, because this is the same time at Arsenal, and I just took the time. We both watched different games there, just so we can, talk about it on our podcast. But I did see the highlights. I did read the stuff about Haaland, and that is, I think I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago. I mean, it's going to change around, but the couple of things that I mentioned at the start, where I had my slight doubts about this player, was injury kind of record over the last few years. Fine now, great. He's an athlete. It looks amazing. That's one little concern. And the other one was that the football might seem a little redundant, and he might not get many touches. We saw it in the Community Shield, similar type of situation. Brilliant, of course, in the first game of the season. And again, I didn't see this every minute of it, but I assume, Rob, and I'll just get your quick. Is it like where he makes runs and then the ball doesn't come, and you stop making runs and you kind of wait, you look at the football? Yeah. I mean, they won the game when he made a great assist, but 8 touches in a game, Rob. I mean, that isn't really normal.
No.
I mean,
I remember when Lukaku had something similar, didn't we? And everybody started to jump on.
And he got ridiculed a little bit.
He got ridiculed, I thought what he did do quite well was stay high up the pitch, Rob, and it helped to stretch the game out and allowed the Gundogans and the De Bruynes to have more effect and Foden when they come on. So that is something, just his physicality and his size and probably his name brings to you. There's a fear about the space in behind, so he stretches teams for you. But I think there's times and listen, Jack Grealish has been at the football club, 14 months or so, and still I don't think he totally understands how City play. I think it's going to be a learning curve for him, Rob, and you're right. There's times he makes runs, there's times he shows for the ball and it doesn't come because they're using him as a decoy to get other people in. But he talked about playing the Etihad, getting his first game in front of the fans, and there's plenty of goals in him. There's plenty more to come. With a City team that are only going to get better, mate, as things stand.
All right, shall we go on to Arsenal, Rob, the game I watched?
This was the game you watched, and really interested in this one because it looked like at one time it was going to be clearly Arsenal, then Leicester got back into the game, and then all of a sudden Arsenal get the fourth. Great win for them. Gabriel Jesus getting all the headlines and looking the player that maybe many thought he should have had the opportunity at Manchester City. He's the main man. He's up front and scoring goals. But what about Arsenal? As a whole, as a balance, as a team, is it starting to look a little bit more like we would expect?
Yeah, really good. This was really good Arsenal. Really good Arsenal. I mean, home game, of course. Fans, it's a totally different atmosphere now inside the Emirates.
Yeah.
The team looks totally different to this time last year, of course. New signings, I got to say, were outstanding. I'll get onto those, but were outstanding in the game. And just the general, the Palace result last week, Rob, they won it, they scored, and they not disappoint because they won the game, but I expected a little bit more control, a little bit more go on then and really boss the game. It didn't really happen. But this was excellent. I mean, Leicester are a dangerous team. They've got good players in different spots. They've got a strong team out. Wesley Fofana, I thought Rob was a risk of a red card early on. We know the Chelsea kind of rumours about him. He was a bit of a loose cannon early on. Brilliant player. Yeah. But he was diving into things and getting into a little bit of trouble. But they're a dangerous team. And Arsenal, you know, they played some lovely football. And it's similarly the tactical side of it, and I don't want to bore the pants off everybody about the tactical side of it, but Arsenal kind of grooved, and they got this different system. I know I mentioned it before, but the way they do things is pretty complex, Rob. And I'm going to jump onto something we always do in our podcast, because I'm going to mention this player. My underappreciated performer for this weekend is Alexander Zinchenko for Arsenal at left back. And I'm sure the listeners and stuff know all about this player, but maybe he was a little bit underappreciated. And coming to Arsenal Football Club, I tell you, he looks so perfect for them. I guess you think that coming from City with, of course, Arteta's links there, but he also rolled into that into midfield, the inverted fullback. I think that they're all calling it right now. So he did that as well. And of course, we know that with their midfield, they kind of spread into a three-man midfield with Granit Xhaka like a number 8 on the left-hand side and Odegaard on the other side. Partey just holding, but he comes into play alongside Thomas Partey. So kind of complex, worked really, really well. But Zinchenko and of course Gabriel Jesus that will grab all the headlines for the goals. 2 goals for him in the first half. I thought those 2 were outstanding. And if you make your first 11 better, you know that's tough to do without spending a ton of money. Now I know they spend a lot of money Arsenal this window and the last season as well. But those 2 players in particular, we've talked about Saliba before. He's unfortunate with an own goal. And by the way, I'm not sure I've ever. I mean, he scored the own goal, Rob, and the fans love him so much. They cheer. They always cheer every time he got the ball after that because, like, don't worry, like we love you. You're doing great. Yeah, keep your spirits up and stuff. And they went on and won the game 4-2. I tell you, this was 90 minutes of good. You know, Palace was like 20 minutes, half an hour of good. Arsenal look really, really comfortable, really confident. The proof will be in the longevity and the consistency. I think that's still where I would have a few doubts longer term. Can they keep this going when things get a little tough? You know, Martinelli was lively at left side of the field against Fofana. It was a really entertaining game. Arsenal looked very good, Rob. Yeah.
It's interesting with Arsenal, Rob, because you feel as though, like, one of the things that was interesting, you say they're grooved now. There's a style of play. There's a set pattern that, you know, we used to watch Arsenal, didn't know what we were going to get. I think that it feels like that's changing a little bit. There's a little bit of a profile around exactly what they're going to do. It looks to me, and again, I saw highlights of the Arsenal game. We'll keep an eye on, but Jesus looks like he's loving life. Yeah. He's loving being the number 9. He's loving being the main man. He's loving getting chances. He's loving being assists. I think he'll enjoy London. I think he'll enjoy his teammates. And a young manager, Rob, and I know we want to over-promote other things, but there's a documentary out with Arsenal at the moment, and people are picking up things, and these little quotes coming on. And one of the things that I keep hearing, Rob, is that the players are saying, Mikel Arteta, he's tactically so smart, tactically so good. And experienced players who you would think, well, they've been in the game. It seems to be a recurrent thing that this guy has got a little bit of that special sauce. Now, he's worked under Pep. He obviously was a great player, and we weren't sure in the past with some of his decisions how he's done things. But it seems he's definitely got this group on side, and the players are talking really highly about him.
Yeah, I'm working my way through those episodes, Rob, that documentary. I haven't seen it all yet, but I'm of course I will get through it. But no, I mean, it's everything's working right now. Good victory against Leicester. That's good for them. That's 2 out of 2 wins. Good start for them. So different to last year. Yeah. But again, let's just see week in, week out, because to finish in the top 4, Rob, I tell you, we just talked about Spurs and Chelsea fired up. You know, Arsenal are in that category. They got to try and find a way to get in there, and it's going to be really difficult given the form of some of these other teams. Yeah. Let
me take you to the City ground, my friend. 23 years it's been since they last played a home game in the Premier League. The last win was 1-0, I think, against Leicester. Chris Bart-Williams with the goal, Robbie Mustoe, in 1999 was the last time I believe.
Chris Bart-Williams. I played
Chris Bart-Williams.
I played with him. Played with Chris Bart-Williams at Charlton Athletic in one of my final years. He's in America, by the way. He's a lovely footballer.
And he was one of those players. I don't know if you remember, Rob. I played against him a few times. He never used to lace his boots up. He'd always have his boots like loose without the laces. I used to think, used to stand on his laces all the time and give him a problem. But listen, let's talk about Nottingham Forest, Steve Cooper and the group, because it was a game, and I was focusing on this one today. 8 of the starting players, Rob, had been bought in this season. They brought in 14 new players. There's probably 2 or 3 more still coming through the door. I mean, it's an incredible amount of players to, 1, get in a dressing room, 2, to mould into some kind of cohesive unit. But Steve Cooper's, I think, a confident coach, a modern coach. I believe will give Forest a realistic chance of staying in the league. And I thought it was such an important win for them today. They got a bit of luck. Listen, West Ham hit the crossbar a number of times. Declan Rice misses a penalty kick. But in the main, the better performers of playing football were wearing red shirts today. And I thought that was an important thing for Steve Cooper and the group. And the fans, by the way, were absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. No, what a day of games it was, Rob. And, for listeners and viewers out there that didn't get a chance to see our pre-game show, I thought it was lovely to go back in time and focus a little bit on Nottingham Forest, where they came from, what they've won, the league title in England, back-to-back European Cups, like the Champions League equivalent now, which is, when you think about it, for a club that's not a giant of a club, is astonishing, back-to-back. With Brian Clough, of course, there were some Cloughy moments, Rob, and a couple of stories that you guys said in the studio. So the feeling around this club is that it really is part of English football, and the atmosphere today was great. I remember playing there once, Rob, and it's my little story. If I'd have been on the air today, is that I was all tucked up in my hotel room, Middlesbrough, away at Nottingham Forest. And got my little gown on, just had a nice dinner and a shower and all that. Got my feet on the settee, watching TV, ready for have a good night's sleep. Phone call. Caroline, your wife's just gone into labour, so you got to get going. So I'm like, oh, blimmin' heck, like it's on. And I phoned around the club, the team, the manager, and I ended up getting the kit man. I think it was Nigel Pearson, Rob, had his car at the game. Yeah. So we jumped in the car and drove all the way up to Teesside. I mean, I don't know, what's that, 3 hours or something? Yeah. I go up there in the middle of, so in like the early hours of the morning, my little Lewis is born. Caroline and Lewis doing great. Like brilliant, lovely, this is amazing. Jump back in the car. Race back, I get like 3 hours sleep. I know. We charged back in the car. I get about 3 hours of sleep. Play Forest away. I think they beat us 5-0, and I nearly got my head knocked off by a Stuart Pearce free kick and whistle past my ear as I was trembling in the war. So it was a brilliant day, but not for my personal life, not my professional life. Yeah. But that's what I always remember about playing the City Ground, and it was the last time I was there. And my goodness, what a crazy day that was.
Yeah, and anyway, that was one of the things. Rob, the history of the football club is important, but I think looking forward is important as well. It's so important now, a bit like Leeds, that Forest stay in and start to get to the money and start to build and start to compete, Rob. And that's the challenge for Steve Cooper. And I've talked about him, I think, on our podcast before. Where I know his work he's done with the England national youth teams. The Fodens and Sanchos and those, I think he won the Under-17 World Cup. His work he did at Swansea, very unlucky probably not to take them out of the division through the playoffs. Came into Forest, done his job. And I think confident enough to sign players. I hear players talk glowingly of him, that he's a real manager and that he takes an interest in your family and your personal life as well as your football life. And they're signing some decent players, by the way, Rob. I think these are like, if Kouyate's come in, they're looking at Mope, Emmanuel Dennis, players who've done it, as well as one or two today. Amoni, I think is the front player's name.
Awoni. Yeah, it was one of them. We got to get our lips around
the muscle memory on his name. But I thought he was lively today. Made a couple of good runs in that. Brennan Johnson, I particularly liked, Rob. I think he was a little unlucky. He got caught offside once or twice. Very good mover. My underappreciated performer of the week, my friend, is going to go to a little midfield player called Lewis O'Brien, who I think you would have kind of liked because played in midfield, Robbie. He's come from Huddersfield, who Forest beat in the playoffs with Tuchel. They came in a joint deal. That's right. 23 years of age, my friend. Played most of his career at Huddersfield, was on loan at Brentford for a year. Clever little footballer, knits things together well, reads a game, experienced. I think the kind of player that in 2 or 3 years might start building a bit of a reputation that one or two others might look at. That's not to say the size of Forest that they can't keep him, but Lewis O'Brien was sneaky good today against Rice and Souček, who were two performers in the Premier League that we know can play at a very high standard. You know, went to Europa League semi-finals last time and 7th in the Premier League. Lewis O'Brien is my underappreciated player of the week.
No, it was on my list as well, Rob, for underappreciated. Made a note of him. And I also made a note of another player that, quite honestly, I thought was overpriced. Nico Williams from Liverpool was a big fee to go to that football club. I mean, he played at right wing back today in their system. I thought he was excellent, like really, really good on the right side of their defensive line. And I think it's interesting. I mean, today was good because last weekend we didn't have him as one of our main games. And you take a look at the highlights, and we did all that.
It was Newcastle, wasn't it? And they didn't play very well, Rob, because I watched the game. I looked at the tape and they didn't play very well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I enjoyed today because to sit back until I had a good look at them, the shape of them, these new players. I've got my computer. I'm doing a ton of research on what these players have done. Also noticed good age, by the way, Rob. And I know they had half the team last year were loan players. Yeah. It's a Greek ownership there. We kept getting shots of the Greek.
Kept crossing himself, didn't he? Every time West Ham hit the ball, he was crossing himself.
Yeah, so, I mean, and these are new signings now. They're like 23, 24, 25-year-olds. So he is hoping that this recruitment and, you know, that they're good enough to stay in the division, and then they could keep doing it, given the age of the team. So Emmanuel Dennis, Robbie Earle, I don't know if it's done and dusted yet from Watford, the striker that did pretty well. Yeah. It's really, really close, I think. I can see him and Brennan Johnson, who I love the look of him, is floating around. I think that as a front two could be really interesting. The midfield two, as you said, there's a new player in there, Mangala, played alongside Lewis O'Brien in midfield. I thought they were excellent. You got a good wing back. Toffolo on the other side, wing back. Rob did really well for their goal, by the way. He gets down the left hand side and checks the ball back. It's kind of an ugly, scrappy goal. Who cares? I was pleasantly surprised by Forest today. You know, after initially thinking, well, you know, so many players new. We've seen this before with Fulham, and they couldn't gel to stay up. You know, you worry about them, but I loved it. Loved today. Loved the atmosphere. You know, it's a brilliant, brilliant club, historic club, and the team. It looks pretty good, so well done, Cooper, and this team looks pretty good.
Well, disappointing for West Ham. Lost last week to Manchester City. Obviously, the champions and can dismount you with the way they play in the setup. Today, West Ham going to Forest, would have expected a little bit more. I think David Moyes. I mean, Tim said on the broadcast, you know, publicly David Moyes will say, we're a bit unlucky. So he'd probably go in the dressing room and say, you know, we got to do better. We've got to do a little bit better than we did. I thought they lacked a little spark. The players, you know, the Bowens, the Antonios, and weren't quite as sparky as we've seen them in the past. Certainly last season.
No, I agree, and I think the new signings are going to help that. Rob Scamacca came into the game. Maxwell Cornet, who was a good signing at the money with his buyout clause, came into the game, and you could see a disappointment in David Moyes' his interview afterwards. But they were kind of unlucky. The crossbar came down a couple of times, and you have Declan Rice, one of the best players in the country, missing a penalty. You know, on another day, and I checked the expected goals, and there's expected goals in this game were higher than Nottingham Forest. So when that's the case, you know that, wow. Go ahead.
Just on that last, on the disallowed goal to Ben Rama in the first half, just want to get your thoughts on the Antonio sort of Mangala coming together. The foul was given, went to VAR. Were you okay with that? I thought it was a foul. I thought sort of the movement and the sort of pushing action, I thought stopped Mangala maybe closing down Declan Rice, who played the ball through. But I think some others were saying that it's coming together with players, and that's one of those things.
You know what? When I first saw it, Rob, I thought he's just run into the player. Like, it's one of those things. It should be okay. Then, of course, you look at it again. They slow it down. I think there was a definite step to the side for Antonio. he's deliberately blocking them off, and there was a little bit of he kind of pushed him afterwards. So if he'd have been right in his path and he just continues on the same line, it's a coming together. But when you step across just even like a foot, then I think it was deliberate, and I think it was the right call. So but it took a couple of times to see it. For me to come to that conclusion, but it was kind of tight.
Disappointing.
So another day, West Ham may have got a point, Rob.
Yeah, well, David Moyes will get them working. I'm sure they'll get things better. Just a quick roundup, mate, of a few of the other games. It was Steven Gerrard versus Frank Lampard, if you listen to the headlines. But it was Villa versus Everton, and Villa won this one 2-1. Danny Ings with a lovely finish. And Buendia came on for Coutinho and really affected the game in the last 20 minutes of that match. Before a Digne own goal for Everton. Big win that for Villa. Steven Gerrard, there's talk about a little bit of pressure in the Tyrone Mings situation and captaincy and all this kind of stuff, but good 3 points for Villa at Villa Park and Steven Gerrard.
No, that's right, Rob, and I did watch that game as well. And, I think one of the points I made was Emi Buendia.
Yeah.
Better than Coutinho.
Yeah.
I mean, Coutinho was disappointing, and you come on and you're bright and you get a goal. Yeah. He's pushing now. He's pushing, and it's the way that they play with the two forwards, with him behind. It's ideal for both Coutinho or Buendia. I just wonder if Steven Gerrard might just give him a run now a little bit. I think he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Everton, a bit weak up front. Onana looks an interesting player, Rob.
He looked not bad, did he? Come on.
The big midfield. I mean, he messed up, didn't he, for the goal?
Yeah.
Got caught as he tried to turn out, and he got caught, and the goal came from there. But he almost put it right. Well, he did put it right with a cross as well. So I think he looks good. They've got, as we knew, they're in a little bit of trouble, Everton, and they've got to find someone to play up front. Rondon come into the game, but they were forced back a little bit, and Villa needed that too. So kind of an important game for the two managers that we know all about. Yeah. But I thought they deserved it. Yeah.
Southampton 2, Leeds 2. Leeds 2-0 up. We're disappointed to have lost the lead. And Ralph Hasenhüttl, hearing one or two places, a little bit of pressure on him. There's talk about maybe one or two dissenting voices in the dressing room. So good point in the end for Southampton, who needed that, I think, after poor performance last week, getting beat 4-1 and then being 2-0 down to Leeds.
No, I think Leeds United is a good watch. And again, I want to take a close look at when we have their game on our air. I'm not sure which we've got next weekend. I haven't looked ahead to next weekend yet, but that's when you get a really good look at these teams.
Tottenham, Wolves, Leicester, Southampton, Leeds, Chelsea on Sunday, August 21st. Leeds, Chelsea.
Brilliant.
So that'll be a great game.
Brilliant.
Great. That'll be a great game on the USA.
That just means we have a real deep dive into Leeds ready for next weekend, so that'll be good. Now, other than that, Wolves 0-0, Fulham. Yeah, Newcastle.
Mitrovic missed a penalty there, didn't he, for Wolves?
I did.
Scored one against Liverpool, and then went the other side to the goalkeeper's right this time, and the goalkeeper read it. Jose Saul made a good save.
Yeah. Fair play to him. Fair play to him. And I think Wolves is another club. I mean, you know, there's a player there that I think is a brilliant little player, Pedro Neto, and I know he had awful injury issues last year, but every time I see him now in a Wolves shirt, I'm looking for him to do something special. I think he's a special player, but we'll see. I'm expecting a big season from Pedro Neto, but obviously not in this game, 0-0.
Yeah, and Brighton 0, Newcastle 0. Again, this one, the Brighton had probably the better of the chances, having played so well against Manchester United last week. But in the end, two of the brightest coaches, English coaches, beneath Graham Potter, going up against Eddie Howe. But probably both will accept that they can play better and accept a point on that one. Decent start to the season for both.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I mean, Brighton's, when we think about Brighton, Rob, we think about lovely football, lovely control, lovely possession, but sometimes not enough cutting edge and goals. Obviously, amazing result against Man United first weekend. 0-0 is going to be slightly disappointing. Maybe the fans are unrestful. We had the fans last year, Rob, wasn't it? They were booing Brighton when they're in the middle of a bad run. I don't expect that to happen again, but so it's a little disappointing at Brighton with what they did in the first weekend. But now, long way to go, my friend.
What a week end we've had, mate. High drama as ever. Plenty of sports in the big London derby that ended up all square. Not sure things can get much worse for Manchester United. Humbled by the Bees of Brentford. On the other part of Manchester, things are going well. Pep's team are purring. They put 4 past Bournemouth. And the first win back in the Premier League for Forest was something that I think all the City ground enjoyed today. We'll be back next week It's on Monday, so make a date in your calendar on Monday, August the 27th, because we want to review Matchweek 3. And on that Monday, Liverpool face Manchester United at Old Trafford. We want to incorporate that game in, so the podcast will be on Monday, August the 22nd, not on the Sunday. But for now, I'm Earle, he's Mustoe, together with the two Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.